This is a tomato blossom, and this is an actual perfect looking one here. They don't all look exactly like this, but this is a pretty, this is a perfect one we can speak of. And the main components that we're concerned with are the ovary, which is the actual tomato, ovules, which are the seeds. Extending from that is the style, and then right at the end here, there's an opening. It's called the stigma. Or actually this whole end piece is called the stigma. These combined parts I believe are called the pistil. The male component is these outer leaves, or they're leaved-like structures. It's called the stamen, and that's the male component. Now in a tomato, you have both the male and the female components. A lot of people call it self-pollinating, and that's not exactly true. They're self-fertile. Now like I said, this drawing here is of an ideal blossom. This would probably most closely represent a lot of the hybrids, like early girl, better boy, as the stigma is contained within the stamen. So the odds of cross-pollination are not very high because it is enclosed. On a lot of your open pollinated types, varieties they call it, heirlooms and whatnot, this actually extends out beyond. And in some, like real small type tomatoes, I forget some of the varieties, it extends out considerably. Then they have a very high rate of cross-pollination. So the distance of this extending out actually increases the odds of any cross-pollination happening. So that's kind of why I wanted to show the actual drawing of this, a cutaway. On a typical flower, this is covered in pollen. This whole area it's covered in pollen and easily transferred by bees or whatever. In the tomato and peppers and this family, the stamen actually has pores in it, and the pollen is contained within. It's kind of trapped inside. Or not trapped, but held inside the stamen. So the ultimate pollinator is the bee. And what a bee will do is he will land on this thing. This is his head up here. And he'll land on this and he will grasp the stamen and pull it against his belly. And then he'll sit there and vibrate. He'll vibrate his muscles and wings. And that sonic vibration, I think it's called buzz pollination, a lot of people call it. That releases the pollen out of the pores and inside, pollinating the blossom or the ovary. Misconception is that, like peppers, say if you plant a hot pepper next to a bell pepper, a sweet pepper, then you'll get a hot bell pepper. That won't happen because you're only fertilizing the existing fruit that's already there. Okay, now the seeds, the ovules, will contain that mix. So if you save the seeds from that season, that harvest of the cross-pollinated plant, those seeds could potentially, be crossed and create maybe a hot pepper. But then you start getting into genes and dominant genes and all this kind of technical stuff. But it's not possible to stick one plant next to another and they cross, and in that season actually produce a modified or a hybrid or some weird plant. That won't happen. It's already there. It's already determined. It's going to grow a better boy or whatever. But saving the seed, yes, then you've risked, you just wouldn't want to save the seed from it if it cross-pollinated. I know a lot of people are growing a lot of different types of tomatoes out there, and a lot of people want to save the seeds, and that's fine, but you got to be careful. If you have plans of giving away that seed, selling the seed, trading the seed and all that, it's really a disservice to not be careful about cross-pollination. I've received seeds before, more than once, that were cross-pollinated. I had one variety I grew last year that was totally a different plant because of that. And I wasn't happy about it because I put a lot of effort and work into growing that plant. But the person that I got the seed from just didn't take any measure to ensure that the seed was true to type, and it irritated me, and it would irritate a lot of people. So it's be careful. I mean, if you're doing it for yourself and just saving seed and all that, that's cool. You can do whatever you like. But when you start trading with other people and spreading it out and around, and it can spread like wildfire, then it kind of, you know, that's not the best thing to do, really, if you're not sure. The odds of cross-pollination, even if they are somewhat close together, it's still fairly low, but it's still very possible. And I know very well it is myself. So anyway, so the best pollinator for tomato, you know, is a bee. The actual original bees that were the original pollinators for the original tomatoes didn't you know, move along with the seed to different countries and all that. So we really are relying on other bees to do the pollinizing, or mainly, those are the main guys. It's not the only way. I mean, wind and shaking and things like that can help it. It can make a difference. And they can, to some degree, self-pollinate, because as these curve, as this opens up and this curves, it rubs. These rub against that and actually do, I guess you could say, self-pollinate to a degree. Sonic vibration that releases that pollen, that's the big main key. The pollen is not on the exterior like most flowers. It's produced internally, and it's released through the pores, and motion is required to release it. And a great quantity is released by a bee that can shake that flower at the correct frequency, if you want to get real technical about it. You know, that's your highest rate, best way. But shaking and wind will release some pollen. The flower is not really attractive to a lot of bees necessarily. It's not like a big attractant. You know, so if bee populations in your area are low, the tomato can kind of get ignored to some degree. Bumblebees are the most often seen on tomatoes, but you can see honeybees and to some degree some of the solitary type bees. They're self-fertile, but you know, the pollen can come from any other tomato that the bee has visited. So you know, it's something you have to be careful of. It's great for people that just want to grow a lot of tomatoes, but it's kind of an issue for people who are wanting to save seed and trade seed and all that. You know, you've got to take that into consideration. You know, you can have under-fertilization. Cat facing is due to incomplete fertilization. That's a common thing that we see, especially on a lot of heirloom type tomatoes. Using an artist brush or using a Q-tip and things like that, it can help, but it's really not the ideal thing. What would be ideal is what a lot of people have found is, you know, those sonic toothbrushes that vibrate. And remember, we talked about the sonic vibration. That really does the best job. It releases the most pollen, and it's a great way to go. And it's worth buying a little old cheapie and getting it in there and pushing it against this thing, just buzzing it, and out that pollen just pour every which way. Only when the conditions are perfect and ideal would it actually really be considered, in my opinion, self-pollinating. Okay, here's the real thing. This is a Cherokee Purple. This is an heirloom variety. And I just wanted to show you what I was talking about, how the stigma, which is right here, this opening, right at the end of this thing is an opening. That's the part that gets pollinated. It's protruding beyond the stamen. This is the area that contains the pollen, and if you look at it, you don't see a bunch of powder on it. The pollen is sort of contained inside this growth, and through vibration it filters out and needs to get onto the end of that. So that's another reason why sometimes it's hard for, especially in humid weather, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's too humid, if it's not humid enough, it's too dry. All those things can affect the efficiency of this getting pollinated right here. But through a bee, attract to the bee. Bees also have a static charge on them, which also grabs that pollen. And he can go to another open pollinator variety and affect it. So this would not be the point where you would bag your blossom or cover the blossom to keep it from being pollinated by another variety. You want to do it much sooner than this. You know, so when I go looking for a blossom set to bag, I might look for something like this that's not fully developed. This is already developed, and I can see, you know, that the stigma is already protruding at this point already on this one. And what I would do is cut this. You can get them when they start to open, but this hasn't quite pulled out yet. And bag these. And also make sure to tag that stem, because you will forget which one it was you bagged. Once the little tomato, this is fallen off, this whole section will just fall off, and that tomato will be right up inside there, starting. Once that happens, then obviously you remove the bag. It doesn't really take a long period of time, and it's actually a fairly short period of time for all this to happen. So I would pick some guys that are in this stage and bag them and vibrate them after they open. But it's a light, porous type bag, and you just go in there and you can peek and see where it's at. Pollinate it, vibrate it. They will self-pollinate to some degree. As this pokes through, it rubs against the inner surface of this, and it can pollinate itself that way. But it may not get full, you know, complete 100% pollination that way. So that's why it's always helpful to go ahead and do that. If you have a mega bloom, you're trying to grow a really huge tomato that has several of these, it's a great idea to go in there and make sure that all of them get pollinated really good and well. If you're really wanting that monster, you know, of several tomatoes melded together, go in there and pollinate them all real good, so you ensure that all of those do pollinate fully. So to sum it all up, it's not a big labor-intensive process to bag a few blossoms on your tomatoes. Obviously you want to wait till that part of the season where your tomatoes plants are producing really nice tomatoes, really in the height of their production. The odds are anything that you bag just temporarily to protect will, you know, produce a good nice tomato. And it doesn't really take a lot of tomatoes to get a lot of seed. I mean, there are some varieties that have very few seeds. You may want to continue to bag those for a while. But you only have to just cover them things, you know, just to let them get through that pollination period. You don't even actually have to take the bag off. You can take one of those sonic toothbrushes and just vibrate the whole bag and let those guys pollinate. And then make sure that you put like a little piece of ribbon or something, a marking on the truss that you're bagging. And so you know, you just leave that on there. And you know that those are the ones that you bagged. You don't have to worry about. These guys I wouldn't bag. As you can see, they're wide open and, you know, obviously could be cross-pollinated. But, you know, you got this guy here who is obviously not developed. And that would be, you know, a prime candidate. But, you know, of course it's way too early in the season to do this now, but I wanted to go ahead and get this out there. For people that are serious about saving seed and wanting to save true to type, or that are picking the best of the best and wanting to save those and grow the best and save them again and save them again. Bagging, you know, can become an integral part of your seed saving. And so thanks for watching, and talk to you guys later. Bye.